Hi guys, been teaching some guitar classes lately, and one of the issues that we run into is I have trouble explaining the finger positions for the big G and the C add 9 and the D and the what I call the cheater G pattern that almost everybody plays. The advantage of the pattern again is that third finger, the ring finger never moves in this pattern, so you've always got an anchor there. That makes it easier to change chords, especially when you're starting out. So the chords are G, C, D, E minor. That's actually E minor 7. You play with both fingers. So that's an E minor. G, C, D. And if you didn't have the cheater pattern, you'd be playing, the G like this, D like this, C like this. That's the way I learned it, and that's fine, except your fingers come off the fretboard every time. And one of the things we talk about and think about when we play guitar is what's efficient. How do we get from one chord to another, and how can we do that quickly with minimal amount of movement? Well, the cheater GCD is the way to go, and that's the 1-4-5 pattern. So G is the one chord, the four chords the C, and the five chords the D. If you learn this pattern, you can play 90% of the music that's out there. So we're going to start with this pattern, and I'm going to zoom in on my hand and explain the position of the fingers in detail here so that you can see it. Okay, here we are in close-up mode, and we're trying to overcome, when you look at somebody play like this, it's really difficult to tell where my fingers are. That's part of the issue that we're facing when I teach these classes and start people out. So I want to show you directly in this close-up mode where the fingers go, and in particular for the GCD cheater pattern. So this is a pattern that if you can play this pattern, the 1-4-5 and G, you can play 90% of the music that's popular, country, acoustic rock, worship. A lot of it is in this key, and uses, even a lot of bluegrass uses this pattern. So we're gonna learn this pattern. That's where we're starting out, and we're gonna start out with the G, which is the root chord of the key. And most of the songs, again, in the key of G, are going to start in G and end in G. So this is the G. That's what it sounds like, and it is built with four fingers. So we start with the um, pinky finger, the fourth finger, and it goes on the third fret of the high E string. And you want to have that up behind, you want to put it as close to the fret as possible. That direction is behind, this direction is above. So we're going to be behind the fret. We're going to put it right up in here. This next finger, the ring finger, goes on the second string, the B string, okay, in the same position, the third fret. So you get this, those two together. Now, um, we're going to take the first finger and go to the fifth, or the note up here, second from the top, one down from here. Put it on the second fret. And then we're going to take your final finger and reach across the third fret on the low E string. Okay, so here, here, um, here, right behind, and here. Once more. Here, third fret, first two strings. Pointer finger on the fifth string, second from the top, the A string, second fret, and reach across and grab the third fret of the low E. And that's a G chord. So then the next chord that we want to look at is a C chord, and it's almost the same. Sounds different, but it's very easy to play with the so-called G or C G pattern. So these two fingers are going to stay in the same spot. And so what we're going to do is these two fingers are up here on the fifth and the sixth, we're going to move down to the fourth and the fifth. So they just move down like this. Okay. So we got these two here, and then the pointer finger goes on the D string, the third string down, the second fret. The remaining finger goes on the third fret of the A string, second from the top. You hear the tone change. That's the C, this is the G. You see the minimum amount of movement from here to here. And one of the things we think about as we learn to play guitar and we get better at things is the efficiency of chord changes. How can we get from chord 1 to chord 2 with the minimum amount of effort, with the minimum amount of motion? Um, of course, less motion means you can change faster. Um, and you'd like to do it without being, looking down at the fretboard. So that's one of the reasons this pattern works, is because this ring finger never changes. It's always in that spot in this pattern. You play the 1, 4, 5, and the minor sixth, all with this here. We got the G, move these down to the C. Now the next chord is the D chord. And again, the ring finger never changes. So that's on the third fret of the B, or the second string. It's up here. And then we have to cover these two frets, these two strings, the G and the E. So we have to cover this string here and this string here at the second fret. So we're going to use our index finger on the third string, next finger on the E string, and then make a triangle. Put your ring finger back. It stays here on the B, the third fret of the second string. So there, that's it. So we've got G, we've got C, now we've got the D chord. Now the last chord that we will talk about and that we use in this pattern is E minor. And again, this finger stays the same. We'll take the pointer finger, second fret of the A, second from the top, and we're going to put the next finger right next to it on the D string, second fret. So we're covering these two strings right here. Plus we've got our anchor on the B, third fret of the B string, third fret of the second string. So here's the E minor. And it's actually E minor seventh. You can hear it. If you play out, if you add the pinky finger to it, it rounds it out a little bit. And that is an acceptable alternative to a normal E minor in most cases. You usually hear it if it's not going to be. So let's go through it again. Here's G, move down. Here's C, go to the triangle shape. That's D, and then here's E minor. Again, just for emphasis, if we were playing it the way I learned or the way I taught myself when I was a kid, play the G like this, and then get to the C, I would do this. So it all comes off, everything's off, and you land here. That's the C, everything comes off, you land here. That's the D, everything off again, E minor. So of course I can do it, but I've been playing 50 some odd years, which is strange because I'm only 48 years old. Anyway, I'm kidding. So that's the advantage again. This finger never moves, so you stay there the whole time. It gives you an anchor to the fretboard, and it makes these changes easier, more intuitive in my mind. So here's the G, move down to the C, triangle shape D, and over to the E minor. So what I did there is I made up a song just by playing the chords in the key of G. And if you know the chords in a key, you can kind of just play. It also helps if you know the 1-4-5 pattern in a key, because when you're playing with other people, it's even if you can't quite read their fingers from across the room and see what they're doing, you know if they're in G, they're predominantly going to play the G, the C, the D, and E minor. In most cases, that's where you're going to live on those. Occasionally, it'll be another chord or two, but generally speaking, it'll be those four chords. So if you know those four chords and you know you're in the key of G, those are the chords you need. Thanks.